Welcome everyone to Talking Textiles. I'm Kyle VanDamme, a member of the Marine Fabricators Association and owner of Marine Tops Unlimited. Joining and co-hosting with me today is Mark Tyrrell, member of the ATA Canada Division and owner of LaSalle Canvas. We are your hosts for today's discussion. The goal of this podcast is to get to know the wide variety of positions and markets that make the advanced textiles world turn. We will be talking to professionals in different roles throughout this series to help inspire the next generation of textiles professionals and anyone interested in learning about others' journeys in the world of textiles. ATA offers advanced textiles content throughout the year, including the upcoming Tent Expo taking place January 9th through the 11th in Daytona, and the Marine Fabricators Conference being held January 25th through 27th in St. Pete Beach. Please visit textiles.org/events to learn more. On today's episode, we are live from the Advanced Textiles Expo and speaking with Jeff Sponseller, Executive Vice President of Miller Weldmaster, Michael Woody, CEO of Transtex LLC, Todd Pusser, CAD designer at Marine Tops Unlimited, and Erin Parker, a PhD candidate at North Carolina State University. And now, let's talk textiles.
Hi, I'm Mark Tyrrell. Today we're doing a two-part live recording of Talking Textiles in the Hub at the Advanced Textiles Expo 2023 in Orlando, Florida. Our guests are Jeff Sponseller, Michael Woody, Todd Pusser, and Erin Parker. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome everybody to the second attempt at a live Talking Textiles podcast. The first one took place at a workshop up in Montreal. That was an IFAI Canada podcast. And this is really the first collaboration from different versions of Talking Textiles podcast here. So we've got a pretty good panel of guests here. The idea is we're doing it live from the ATA Expo here in Orlando, Florida. And we want to get different perspectives. So we've got different guests that are coming to the show from different walks of life, different parts of the industry. And we want to give you a little bit of a look at the ATA Expo, IFAI, formerly IFAI, from all the different perspectives. Give our listeners an idea of what the show looks like from those different walks of life. So I'm going to ask our guests to introduce themselves. I'll start over here with Jeff.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Sponseller from Miller Weldmaster. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you.
Michael Woody, I'm the CEO of Transtex. We're a narrow fabrics finishing company based in Cranston, Rhode Island. Former chair of the Narrow Fabrics Institute and lead singer of the ATA's industry band, Hanging by a Thread.
I was going to definitely make sure to put that plug in there if you did. Yeah.
You could just hear the professionalism in his voice.
Great show last night, too. I'm surprised he's not a little bit of a hoarse voice.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah. Appreciate that.
My name is Erin Parker. I'm a PhD student at NC State University. Here with NC State as an exhibitor and also just to learn.
I'm Todd Pusser. I'm with Marine Tops Unlimited, and I am here to learn more about the fabrics we use every day. I know how to apply them, but I know almost nothing about the actual fabric. So,
sorry, Todd, you had to follow a doctor. That's tough.
Todd kind of jumped us off there. Actually, one of the first things we'd love to hear from everybody is really what's your motivation for being here at the ATA Expo?
Our company fits a niche market, and it's all the fabrics that we see here and all the products that are made. We'd like to think they're put together with our machines. And this is Miller Weldmaster's best opportunity to put our machines in front of our customers. You know, post-COVID, the world's changed to watching a lot of things on video, watching YouTubes. But at the end of the day, people still want to come in, see the machines, touch the machines, and make sure it works for them. So that is probably the most important reason that we come to the show, along with, the camaraderie of all our colleagues. So,
as I said, we finished narrow fabrics. So a lot of our vendors are here, a lot of our vendors and potential vendors. So it's a great way for us to see what's happening in the narrow fabrics industry in general. If there are new players, new types of narrow fabric, and also like attachments. We have a lot of suppliers of attachments. Like I see a company over there that sells attachments. So those two reasons make it a great place for me to come as an attendee as opposed to an exhibitor.
Perfect.
So I'm here as part of NC State, and we come to the Expo every year because we are here to educate the industry about the services and the classes that we actually offer at NC State for the professional sphere. So we have a lot of ways for industry people who might have projects they need to work on to get involved with students, to come and recruit students if they're needing that. And also to just utilize our lab facilities and all the equipment that we do have just right on campus.
I am here to, I don't know, tap into my more creative side, understand different possibilities we can apply materials in the jobs that we're on. Really, yeah, it's my first year here, so just get an idea of everything, I guess.
He doesn't know why he's here. No, as Todd's employer, like for me, I wanted to bring him here to just give him this experience of how much bigger our industry is than we really think. You know, when you look across this huge convention center and see all these booths, and there's obviously a lot more businesses in our industry than are even here yet. But I remember my first time coming, just being, you know, we own a little canvas shop in Wisconsin that has 5 employees, including myself, and a couple other spots or locations that have a couple employees. But I remember my first time coming here and going, oh, wow, holy cow. I thought there was like 100 people in our whole US that did what I did. And it looks like it's a little different than I thought. So I just thought this would be a really cool eye-opening experience for Todd to experience too. And I think the first time we walked across this nice, for you folks that can't see, because this isn't video recorded, this is a huge convention center with like a big walking area that has glass kind of windows that you can look over the top from the second floor. And we walked across that to come in here, and it was just, Todd was just like, you know, I think there was an expletive that maybe I can't say, you know, here. So, but yeah, it was kind of just, he was astonished how big of a deal this is.
I'm assuming Jeff and Michael, you guys have been coming here for quite a few years, I would imagine. So how do you think that the show is, or the expo has really evolved over the years, and what have you seen different? And interestingly enough, I mean, we've got Todd who's here for his first time. Can either of you remember your first time at the expo and maybe how different it looks today?
First, because this is a podcast, I'd like to point out that Michael and I are the only two with gray hair on this table. So for him to make that gross assumption that we've been coming a long time is offensive and accurate. Wow, my first time, I want to say it might have been Orlando 24 years ago, actually. I don't know if that's accurate, but I think so.
You don't have enough gray for that.
Well,
yeah,
24 years.
Yeah. I started in the industry when I was 16. And no, and I think what shocked me, similar to what you mentioned, was how many people do what we do, or how many people are really in this industry. You know, I'd assume, I don't know, what are there, 2 awning makers in Ohio was maybe my guess. Wrong. But I just being here, seeing things, touching people, just really opens up your mind, in my view, to think a little bit differently. And the first time I saw that, it was an eye opener, and come every year now. So
That's excellent.
For me, it's less about, I'm still a baby in the industry. I've only been in the textile industry for about 10 years, actually. So I came from another industry. So when I first came to an expo, I knew nobody and I knew nothing. So my perspective is that I see it more in a sense of how the show has changed me than how I've changed the show, because I've developed so many relationships by coming to the show that it's become almost a family type atmosphere for me. And I have so many friends and so many colleagues now. They have no relation to my business at all, but it makes this a great place to come because I get to see all those people, and at least once a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. Even yesterday, and it's gotten to the point now where I'm fortunate to be in a position where I bring staff with me so they can kind of run the gamut of the floor and see what's new and find new products and find, new things that are pertinent to our business, because I just end up socializing the entire time.
Yeah.
And sometimes with people that, you're right, like we don't even do business together. We'd love to, we're going to maybe try and figure it out somewhere down the line, but you just really, yeah, there's just old standing, friendships and relationships and yeah, so I get to, be a bit of a social butterfly now. And I think that's become my main motivation, besides some of the more important meetings that, end up having with existing suppliers and picking up new ones.
Sure. So it is that kind of balance between, okay, I got to do some business here, but also got to see some old friends and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head too. Yeah, it's just there's so multifaceted of why, the reasoning to come to something like this. And Mark, you nailed it. And I do the same thing when I come to these. I'm trying to show Todd around and like show him things and stuff, but then I get stopped and start talking to somebody for half an hour, and he just goes on to the next booth. But yeah, I think that's the big thing. There's just so much you can learn and pick up at these shows, and then obviously the camaraderie and the friendships you build over the years is a really cool thing and a really good reason to come back. And then for us folks that are north of the border there up in Canada, and for us in Wisconsin, we left and it was a blizzard. So there's another good reason to come down here too, is to escape our snow up there.
Yeah, Orlando's not too tough to come down to.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Especially when you're leaving a blizzard. Yeah. Yeah, well, let's ask our other end of the table here for some new attendees. You guys, what are your expectations for the Expo before you arrived, and how is Expo living up to that? I know, Erin, you're not exactly new. We'll call you new-ish because it's not your first time here. Todd, it is your first time here. So, but what have you guys been? What did you think you were going to see, and how has that lived up to that?
It hasn't been too many years, so I can still kind of think back to my first time. And so definitely coming as a student, you don't know what to expect. Because I think Jeff kind of said there's just so much in the industry, especially as a student, you don't have that breadth of knowledge yet. And so it was always so cool coming to the Expo and just seeing what all is out there. I always especially look forward to all of the education sessions, especially the Emerging Technologies Conference, because as a student in the e-textiles and wearable space, I'm getting up in front of like CEOs of these wearable tech companies, being able to ask them questions and hearing what they're working on, which is just very inspiring for my own work, and just really good to see like what all is out there in the industry.
Likewise, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what I was getting into. Kyle kind of briefly told me, but I still didn't know. And I was pretty mind blown when I first saw everything from up there. The size of the booths and everything. It's obviously overwhelming for someone's first time. You don't think about all the manufacturers to how it gets to us. And it's just not something you really think about day to day, I guess. So.
Have you, as you walked around, have you found anything that you're automatically going to take back with you to help you with some of your processes?
We saw a couple rolls of fabric we're going to take back with us for stealing.
I wouldn't say I haven't not any like techniques or anything like that. I definitely have gotten a better understanding of like the materials that we use though. And a good understanding of the different cutting tables that are out there, which is in the future sounds like our next step at Marine Tops. So,
and to be fair, just so folks that are going to listen to this later, it's only the morning of day 2. And so Todd and I started at one wall and probably only got maybe 30% of the way down. So we've only seen about 30% of the show so far. So he's got a lot. And I told him, I'm like, hey, if you remember like 10% of the knowledge of you see this weekend, that'll be pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
I don't know if it's too early in the podcast at this point, but I was going to ask some of our guests that have been here for a bunch of years, if you've got any funny stories, and we'll try and keep it PC, but we do have some editing capabilities.
PG-13 at least.
Yeah.
You can go up to 13.
So I think IFAI, previously IFAI, ATA now, it felt like they celebrated the 100th year anniversary for like 5 years. They really, we milked it, right? It was, this show, well, this one's 100. Well, no, this is our 100th show. So that was kind of fun. But it was in Boston, and it was at the same time as the Republican National Convention.
I remember that show.
And and at the same time, a nor'easter came in. Now I'm an Ohio guy, so I know snow. I don't think I ever saw anything quite like that before. And it was just kind of mayhem with security details and everything around all going on while the show was on. So I went back to my room, and at the end of the hall were these Secret Service agents in guns. And they're kind of shaking me down like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm staying here. And they're like, Mr. Romney's room's right above yours. We need to look at your hotel room. I'm like, okay, is this a joke or what's going on? So he didn't win. It was a little disappointing for him, I think, but I didn't hear any tears. So I don't know, just a really unique life experience that, it happened in Boston. So
You know what? And until you just told that story, I had forgotten about that show and that the Nor'easter came in because I was actually at dinner with a whole bunch of folks from Serge Ferrari. It was actually, and a lot of them are not even with that company anymore. It's evolved since then, but we came out of dinner and had a massive snowball fight out in the street just outside the restaurant where we were having dinner after that Nor'easter. And I do remember the Republican convention being there. Fortunately, I didn't have any guns pulled on me or get searched or anything, but that's a pretty incredible story.
I think this group here has a funny way of turning everybody younger again, because I like to think, I am one of the youngest folks around here, but certain times after 5 o'clock when we're out, I feel like sometimes I'm not anymore. It's always fun.
Speaking of fun, for me, it's not a funny experience, but the most fun experience was helping to put together our textile industry band, because I think people at first thought it was a little crazy. I mean, you round up 8 people from the show floor, you practice, you come into the show the day before the show, you rent studio time, practice for 5 hours, and then the next day you're on a stage. And because we all live in different parts of the country, so that's kind of like a trapeze without a net, so wow. So we just doing that has been a great experience, because it's really, for me, when we do that, it seems to create a great family atmosphere.
I agree.
Yeah. And that it adds to the importance of that to this show, the fact that people are getting together just to have fun, strictly to have fun.
Honestly, that's amazing. I had no idea that's how you guys put that band.
That's how we do it.
I would have I've seen you play, and I thought that you guys were doing this on a fairly regular basis.
So we all live in different parts of the country, so we practice our parts separately, and then just come in the day before the show gig, and we practice in a studio for 5 hours. Luckily, our voices hold up. I see Char Clark, my compadre out there from the band.
I will say I was a drummer in high school, so if you need a backup next year.
Oh, you want to sit in next year?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you're welcome.
Podcast has become a recruiting tool. Here we go.
See that? That's how we increase the size of the family.
We're gonna have to get, you guys had, I think, like 8 people to start, and maybe at some point like 12, 14 folks on the stage last night.
Oh yeah, well that was for Mustang Sally. We always bring a few people up on stage to sing "Ride Sally Ride." So.
Oh yeah. We're gonna make sure we have to have like a really large. We might have to rent out
tradition.
Like a whole concert hall next year. I don't know.
Well, I see Janelle out there from ATA, and Janelle has been one of our backup singers on Mustang Sally a couple of times. It's all in the family. It's all in the family.
So the question going on is to give you guys a chance to answer is, what has been, and Todd, you only have 1 day and a night so far to answer this question, I guess. So it's probably pretty obvious what you're going to say. But again, the question to you guys is just kind of what's been that favorite experience or most memorable experience that you've had so far at one of these events.
So it's not necessarily a funny story, but I remember last year I was actually supposed to be moderating a panel for one of the education sessions at the early conference attached to ATA. And then I, found out one of our panelists from our research team couldn't be there, and then another one of the researchers couldn't be there, and so I ended up giving this talk by myself. I went from being a panelist to having to do the whole thing.
You were moderating yourself at that point.
I was moderating myself. Yeah, asking myself the question, being, I think. So that was just a memorable experience because, as a student, you're coming up there and you're talking to industry experts about what you know, which I don't know if I would have that opportunity a lot of other places.
I don't know how many of these industry experts, quotes, air quotes, have PhDs or are working towards them either, though. So who's really the expert, honestly?
Yeah.
I obviously don't really have any funny stories. Last year I did go to the MFA conference. And I remember a lot of long nights on Bourbon Street, but that's about it.
Those are probably stories we can't tell over the air.
Playing a little bit off against, the veterans versus, the people coming to the show for the first time or for, maybe a second or third time. Do you guys have any advice that you would give to, first time show attendees or people that maybe are listening to the podcast and have never been to an expo as to like what approach they should take to get the most out of it? Like,
Yeah, I'll start. One of the things about this industry, I came a long time ago, but I came from pharmaceuticals, and a lot of us all came from other industries where it was, let's say cutthroat and head to head all the time. Everybody in this industry is nice, including your competition. And so I would recommend reaching out to anyone with gray hair. Reaching out. People want to help you, sincerely want to help you. And I've had mentors over the years that I would pick up the phone and call, and I need some advice on certain things. So my advice would be, don't be afraid to reach out to other colleagues in the industry if they're with your company or not. You'll be surprised what they're happy to show you and tell you.
For me, and this is really not so much about the show itself. It's the show's ripple effect. So when I first came to the show, I said I knew no one, knew nothing. And then I was asked to volunteer to join the NFI board. And I said yes. And so then I became chair of NFI. I got involved in advocacy in Washington, D.C. through the Outlook Conference, which is sponsored by NFI and USIFI. And through that, I got to know on a personal basis our Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Senator Jack Reed, and I'm able to advocate with them personally for U.S. textile manufacturers. So when I talk about a ripple effect, if I don't come to ATA Expo, and if I don't say yes, none of that happens. So I think it's important that if you're new to the show and someone from the association asks you, would you be interested in volunteering to do something with one of the divisions, say yes.
And I'll even piggyback off that, because even at my first ATA Expo, I met some people that were working on new standards, and that ended up becoming my master's thesis. So I don't come to the ATA Expo, I don't get those connections or get asked to be on a standards committee. I don't have, what now would be my master's thesis, or at least it would look different. So really is powerful.
Interesting. I just want to go on record to say those last two stories were not rehearsed or expected.
No,
we didn't even ask for that plug, but that was tremendous. And
that is really cool.
Yeah. And I've had a similar experience that way. I kind of fell onto the ATA board, and it turns out, and I found out from a plaque that I received yesterday as I stepped down as chair during this very, very expo, that it's actually been 11 years that I've actually been on the board, which I think is actually a little against board regulations, but maybe we'll have to edit that out too. I don't know.
It's kind of like American politics. You can just stay in there and, until they force you to retire or something, maybe.
Something like it. But you know what, Jeff, you hit on a great point. The openness in the industry, the willingness to help. I think it's really prevalent. It's something that we've explored a lot on this podcast with, the idea of working in a network, working with different people, different colleagues, even if you're competitors, you can help each other out, because in the end, a project successfully achieved, and especially the bigger projects that get a lot of visibility, it opens people's minds, people from other industries, to what can be accomplished with textiles. And it might actually have them looking at textiles in a different way for projects that previously they would have thought, there's no way, that's got to be brick and mortar or metal, and you know what I mean? And they don't know those possibilities. So when these projects get realized, and when they're done well and successfully, and you help somebody to do that, it just promotes our industry and kind of grows it on the whole, and creates more opportunity for all of us, really.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I saw somebody just kind of talking about kind of just the width of this industry and different, people in it and different sectors of it, different divisions within the ATA. Someone that I've known for a while that was a previous employee at a canvas shop that I met quite some time ago, and he was with that shop for about 5 years. I just saw him here today, and I knew he had left the canvas shop and is working somewhere else, but I didn't know where, because we're just Facebook friends and I don't see him all the time. He's in a different state, and here he is. He's working for a car wash company, and they're here to start, like, they want to start building all of their own equipment, the brushes. They were looking for some meshes and some different materials. And I'm just like, he's like, I didn't expect to see you here. I'm like, I didn't expect to see you here. What do you mean? So it's just kind of crazy where I thought he went into something completely different, but turns out he's, he got a job in something similar and more of a, they were doing custom canvas. So everything was a one-off type of thing, but I'm sure they're going to obviously be making repeatable type of projects or products for their car washes. So it was just kind of interesting. They're going to take on trying to do that all themselves instead of outsourcing that type of a thing. So it's just cool how you see, people come full circle. They get right back into that fabric industry too, where you've seen a lot of folks, at least I know a lot of folks that started as canvas fabricators. Now they work for some of the distributors or manufacturers, working 40 hours a week instead of 80 now. Lucky guys. But, and you just see people kind of go from one possible company to another, maybe in from the distributor side to the manufacturer side, or rarely do you see them going into the fabricator side. People are smart enough once they stay away from that. But it's really cool to see kind of that camaraderie and everybody's helping each other, and you can go from one company to another possibly. And especially when things like COVID happened or some downturns in the economy, and it's really neat to see people that you've seen also for 20 years. I've been here probably 15, and well, with the MFA, maybe only 10 with the ATA, or as far as coming to Expo. It's really cool kind of family type group that I think is really, really neat.
Actually, along those same lines, I met two different people yesterday that were effectively retired from the industry, but came around to either a farewell tour or to see all those familiar faces just one last time, just to really visit friends, because they knew they were, they're not going to really be in touch anymore and they're not going to see them. And this was the ideal place to do it. It's great.
I think Dennis Bucher is going to be on like his 45th farewell tour in a couple of years or something. Like he's just not like, he can't leave the band.
He can't leave the band.
Yeah.
We've got him under contract.
Good. 10 years, 46 million or something like that.
Not quite that much.
Oh, something close to that.
drop a couple of zeros.
It's more like how much you're willing to spend to rent the studio time. That's what it is. He's still willing to spend the money.
Yeah, that is cool that someone like him just comes, because I don't think he was doing anything other than he walked through the show yesterday and came to play with the band. So it was cool to see him. But yeah, it's really cool to see he's been in the industry so long that he just wants to spend his own money and kind of come back here and have some fun playing with the band and sort of give back to the industry, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Kyle, you made an interesting point earlier, talking about COVID-19 and the pandemic. That was something that certainly put the show on a bit of a hiatus for at least 1 year. And then there was the online version of it. So my question, I guess, to everybody who's been to previous shows is, have you seen a difference in the show before the pandemic and after the pandemic, and maybe in terms of people's approach to the show, or even what it looks like?
Yeah, I'll start out from being maybe more on the sales and marketing side. To do a Zoom call, or before Zoom, it was GoToMeeting, right? Right. Whatever happened, they missed their opportunity for some reason. So to ask someone in our demographic to get on a video call was foreign and unusual. We can't conceive that now. Right. And now we do it all the time. And so what's probably changed for us is when customers come to our booth and they engage with us, they're a little more educated. It's not, what is this and how does it work? They already know. They're spending more time researching prior to coming to the show. And it's really kind of fine tuning. So by the time they see us, I like to teach our team, a customer is probably about 80% to their decision by the time they even reach out to you. So I try to prepare our team when coming into the show to be ready to say, look, most of these people that are going to come by our booth have already done their homework. So think that way when they come through. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen.
That's interesting.
For me, I think the key difference is to follow up on what Jeff was saying about Zoom. A Zoom show, there are no chance encounters. And the thing about coming to something like this, it's the chance encounters that you're not going to experience if you're making appointments to be on a Zoom, because you already know what you're looking for. Last night, got off the bandstand, guy walks up to me, "Oh, you guys rocked it. It was really good." And I said, "Oh, thanks. What does your company do?" Well, we make UV coating and other types of coatings for narrow web fabric. Oh. So immediately we got into a conversation because we buy a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And now we're going to have a conversation, after the show is over about whether or not, we can partner together on some projects. So again, chance encounters. You don't get chance encounters when you do a Zoom call because you're going to a Zoom call for a particular reason.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a really good point. Absolutely. Guys, got anything to add to that one? I know Todd.
I didn't start coming till after COVID. So
Okay, so no,
can't compare
Yep,
anything.
no comparisons to be made. For me, gosh, I know from from an attendee standpoint, I don't know. I don't know if I have a whole lot to add, that it's a lot different. I think it was awesome to be back along that one year that we had the online thing and that we didn't have our MFA conference, which is of course a division of the ATA. That sucked because I really missed seeing everybody. It's for me, I love coming to these things that you get a group of people that are like-minded, that realize that we're trying to do the same thing, that realize during the pandemic we've had some supply shortages and issues with that, and we all feel it, we all live through it. All the times when I'm at the MFA conference, I get a chance to see all the fabricators that go through the same issues with customers that are like this, or they need it yesterday, but I'm only willing to pay this much. And, so we all get to talk about that and blow off steam, I guess. So it's fun to be around like-minded people, people with the same type of skill set that you have, or at least a knowledge of, what you're doing. Because, a lot of people, when I tell them, well, I make custom canvas for boats, they're like, well, why don't you just buy a tent from Walmart and put it on top of the boat, or something like that. They just don't understand it, sort of. So that was the most refreshing thing I always thought coming into this. So I just sort of missed it during the pandemic. So it was good to be back, and it's been a lot of fun to start doing things like this again.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's I think it was a breath of fresh air to be able to come back and have those face-to-face meetings and see everybody, the familiar faces. But to Michael's point, I think you're so on point about those chance encounters and those people that you didn't know you were going to meet or expect to meet. And I've built so many different relationships over the years, and even with people that were like, we still haven't managed to do business together, but we're just chomping a bit, waiting to, because you meet somebody that you genuinely like, you appreciate the integrity and the credibility that they bring to the way they do and the way they approach their business, that you just know it'll be great when you finally do get to work together, and you're just always looking for those opportunities. And when you have that network, sometimes it's just going to be like, when somebody approaches you with something and maybe it's something you can't help them with, you're like, but I know the person that can help you.
Yeah, I do a lot of business with someone that I met on the NFI board, and we never would have done business if I had met him on that board, which I never would have done if I hadn't come to the Expo.
Absolutely. And you made a great point earlier, but say yes, right? Like we can we're back to the old Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man, right? So somebody asks you to volunteer, somebody asks you to, step up for, to a board or get involved. It's a great opportunity.
Well, there's always a ripple effect. It's like that film, It's a Wonderful Life, where poor George doesn't realize the effect that he's had.
Right.
So this show is a similar thing. You never know what's going to happen because of the show. So it's that ripple effect that's so important.
On that topic, has anybody got any stories where maybe an event, like, other than, just not just a funny story or something that was super memorable, but something that actually maybe led to a project that was unexpected, or that, or colleagues that you met here, or whatever, that led to a business opportunity that you never would have expected? I think, Michael, you kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, some of the things that have helped us and me grow in the industry is when I get to see somebody on the outside that's not active in the industry. Right. So perhaps they're making tents, for an example, or awnings or canvas shop, and they don't come. And I'm constantly encouraged that you have to go. You have to go. So I've had a lot of rewarding experiences from introducing people to the industry, showing them around, introducing them to people that they may not have known. And a lot of times it's startups, or they just bought a business. They're smart. They don't need to worry about that. They've got it figured out. Turns out they don't. And so I've had a lot of rewarding experiences introducing people to key suppliers in our industry and watching their business grow. And almost every time I get a lot of, man, I can't thank you enough for introducing me to those people. It's really changed our business. So that's been rewarding for me.
Jeff just made me think of something else along those lines. It's a lot of us are in very competitive industries. So it's not always about price. You know, it's not always about price in a competitive industry like that. It can also be about trust. So if it's very competitive and if it's very price sensitive, then that's when trust comes into play, because I've been presented with opportunities for my company because I've developed relationships with people who now I have that relationship from the show floor and they know they can trust me. So that I think that's a huge step. And I unless I want to run all over the country, you know, and spend money on time and money on planes and hotels, this is the only place where I can do that.
If I may add to that, you know, we think it's big, but it's really small in a lot of ways, and word travels fast. So on Woody's terms about Michael's terms on about doing the right thing, building trust. If you don't take care of a customer, and it's going to sound so cliche, so everybody hang on, where everybody has good service, but in sincerity, if you take those extra steps to take care of a customer where things maybe didn't go right this time, that word travels really, really fast. And so I think I've learned a lot listening to other people, maybe who to work with and who not to work with. And I would just advise everybody to do your best, do the right thing, because you're going to be surprised who you're going to get to do business with in other areas.
Yeah, as an end user customer, I would definitely agree with that. We've been with a distributor for a long time, and they're not the biggest. They might not get things the fastest always, but they take care of us. If we have issues, they make it right, and that's almost more important sometimes to some degree than the pricing that we might get from them, or you know how quickly we get it or something. So yeah, I think that's a really important thought is taking care of your customers, building that relationship, and then continuing it. I think that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, as a distributor that also has manufacturing capability, and we often do contract manufacturing for different fabricators in the industry. Absolutely. Like, you know, I'll often tell them, look, you know, here's your price, but I guarantee you're not going to pay a penny over it, and you're going to be satisfied at the end of the day. And whether it be a distribution order or a manufacturing order, I often tell, you know, a salesperson, they'll bring in a brand new customer, and typically, right, the first order, all kinds of things go wrong, and we're not anything like, maybe it initially looks like we're not anything like we promised, but when you can make good on that, you can make it right. A lot of times it's a bigger opportunity to really show your true colors. You know, I mean, when you follow through and you fix the issue and they get exactly what they, and at the end of the day, they're satisfied, and you really kind of follow through on that promise. And so a lot of time, and it creates almost a memorable experience. I'm not saying I want things to go wrong at that first order, but a lot of times it really is that chance to show, you know, what you're made of.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of ATA Talking Textiles live at Expo. ATA is a not-for-profit association representing the international specialty fabrics marketplace. Learn more about events, workshops, and webinars ATA hosts throughout the year at textiles.org/events.